hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Origin Stories. We have here a very big guest. We have Mons.
Thank you.
How are you doing
Thank
today,
you.
sir? How are you?
Good. Happy to be here.
Awesome.
Happy to sit back and just relax, doing something for someone else instead of my own project. That's really relaxing.
And it's really relaxing. You don't have to do any heavy lifting, no editing. We do the
Exactly.
hard work. That is awesome.
Exactly.
We were just together. I don't know if together is the correct word, but we were together just last week talking about Narset. We played a few games on your stream where I won.
Yeah, and you won a game. I think you won two.
Oh, I won one, and then we got rolled by the stacks. The other 3 games.
But I think you were close in winning a little bit more than one game.
Yes, I was very close to winning. Then the table ganged up on me, but it was fun. It was great. People should definitely watch that video. We'll at the end of this video we'll put all the information in. So, in this origin stories, we're just gonna ask you just your background stories of Magic. How you got into Magic?
12 years old, a friend of mine in school get a Portal card pack, and we played during breaks, and then it just escalated.
Portal? Nice. Oh man.
Yeah, the strongest creature was a 4/5 for 5 mana, and whoever drew it won the game all the time.
Nice.
No idea of that. I am a new bird. This is where Tim comes in. I remember old knowledge.
Oh, dude, I remember Portal. Portal was fun.
It was very simple.
Just the card wording is a little odd. So there was like sorceries that you could cast in like during combat and on other people's turns.
I don't think we even had those. We had creatures without abilities.
Yeah, that's vanilla creatures. And did you get into standard? How did you get into?
No, it into vintage basically, or actually more type 2 vintage, or like casual vintage.
Okay, so you didn't go. You never hit the competitive scene of any Magic formats.
No, we played free for all 60 card multiplayer games basically. Very similar to Commander, but without a commander, and you could have 4 cards of anything. One person actually had like 20 of the same land or elf in his deck, and he played a 200 card deck, and the power level could be very strange.
So you just played casual tabletop Magic for a while. That's awesome. Yeah. Normally the guests we have normally got into competitive standard, modern, legacy.
The power level I experienced was very similar to more higher power, because you could see someone go Black Lotus, Channel, Emrakul, and that was casual in our eyes.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I've noticed that a lot of international Magic players, like even in their casual like groups, they were still playing pretty, like, to put it into a common vernacular, like high power commander essentially. People would do busted things pretty consistently.
Yeah. And this wasn't even the strongest deck in the pod, but
that does not sound casual at all. But all right, that was tabletop Magic for you. That's awesome. How did you get into cEDH?
It kind of began in a more like so me coming from what I just described, having this is normal casual power, playing with real casual EDH players, realizing, okay, this doesn't really work.
Right.
So it was always, okay, let's staggering up the power level. This is too strong. Let's go drop it down again. Right. So eventually I started to see deck lists online saying, okay, this is like the strongest deck in the world, kind of. I can't play that, so I will play this mediocre thing. One time, the first cEDH that I actually built, Sean, was Narset. And I took it apart just after I played the game with it.
Oh.
No. So, So I've been tiptoeing into cEDH and then tiptoeing out of cEDH because I didn't have real players to play with.
Because, at the end of the day, that's social contract. So if your playing group is not having fun, so, that was nice of you to step out and not be the bully of the group. That is awesome. But no, you should have definitely stick with Narset and mind the salt of your play group.
I think you're gonna be happier because my next cEDH deck was Gitrog Monster.
Oh, okay. Then you're on the correct tracks there. Very, very correct. Very correct. How long have you been playing cEDH?
I think before Gitrog Monster was released is the right term, which was somewhere where
Innistrad.
before Innistrad. I think it was Zendikar set somewhere there. The Zendikar set without Emrakul in it.
Oh, Zendikar.
Turn to the second Zendikar.
So there was Zendikar. Rise of the Eldrazi was the third set. Worldwake.
Yeah, Worldwake. About there.
Okay. So when you entered the community of cEDH, how did you have an expectation? How did you feel about it?
I don't think I had a big expectation of it. I think my big entry into the community was finding a Facebook group, basically. And then I found some Reddit posts, and I found some Discord servers that were playing online webcam back then, really small compared to today.
I remember when me and you used to play High Power together on PlayEDH long time ago.
Have we played on PlayEDH together?
When I was playing
I don't remember. Oh, I don't remember that. Sorry.
It was a long... Dude, it wasn't often, and it was a long time ago.
Oh.
I would play Isamaru a lot.
Wow. Wow, I didn't know. Wow, we played a lot of games then, back then. Interesting.
Yeah. The small world. I like the history.
Yeah.
Sean and Scott were in my pods a lot.
Yes. I played these for a while also. Right before Get Wrong. Okay, that's pretty good. That's pretty good.
I had a bunch of like pseudo cEDH decks before Gitrog that kinda, it's pseudo optimal to fit a specific more play group, but Gitrog was the real thing, so to say.
Yeah. So what were some of the resources you used when you got into? You talked about you went to Reddit, you went to Facebook.
I actually began with looking at the command zone, and after a few videos, I said, I think my decks are stronger than yours. Then I found Team Turn 3, and I think Team Turn 3 was one of my big inspirations.
Okay.
And I found a lot of different deck techs on the internet, so-called net decking, which I highly do recommend. That is not how I found Narset. That is not how I found Gitrog, but it is how I found a lot of Sur decks, Bloodpod, and a lot of Tasigur lists. Because when I was searching, Tasigur was like one of the big strong components.
Yes, I believe Tasigur was very popular at that time. I think that's when Leovold just got banned, because Leovold was king of Sultai. I
don't think Leovold existed when I were net decking.
No, I don't think he did. I think he got banned.
He got introduced because so I played Tiny Leaders, and he was specifically made for Tiny Leaders.
Was he?
Mm-hmm. That is when Wizards. That's when Wizards learned their lesson of not producing cards for new unsupported formats.
There's a little lesson there.
Huh.
Wizards have dabbled in many things and learned many lessons, and they still print broken cards. But that's why we like the game. That's why we enjoy the game. So what are some other resources would you like to say to like a newer player? What footsteps should they follow?
Today, back in the days, they were pretty much just big open places like Reddit and Facebook that talked cEDH in general. But today you have so many more specific Discords that I think are much better today. You can easily find, if you want to build Animar, there's an Animar focused Discord where you have casual Animar builders and you have some high power competitive Animar builders. So I think I would start there if I were a beginner.
So definitely jump into the Discord community is what you're saying.
Yes. Yeah. And the specific ones.
Yes. No, I think that's very correct.
And one of the best ways to, just to do a little shameless plug here real quick, one of the best ways to get into all those various Discord communities is if you go to our website, budgetbrews.club, you'll find a resource link down here. One of them is to Shaper's commander library that will link all of the deck specific, well, not all, but most or the vast majority of the deck specific discords, as well as primers, as well as play discords and various content creator hubs, as well as content too.
That is awesome. That is a good plug. Well done, well done. But no, the Commander's Library is very good for whatever you need. But I do agree with you. I didn't think about that. Normally people would say, you know, YouTube or Scryfall or cEDH Rec was also a very popular one. But
hey, I have a small comment to that. Take me for example. I play a lot of variations of builds, right, and I can easily tell you everything you need to know about my core commanders.
Right.
But if you're asking me about, let's say, Animar, right, I could say a few things. But I think the best people to help you out are those that are constantly playing more Animar.
Yeah,
so if you go into YouTube, you usually find the variants of me who knows a broad, small area of that. But then the more detailed questions can be answered and elsewhere.
Yeah, more detailed, more precise. That is very true. So
yeah,
go on Discord, get whatever commander you want to play. You will normally find the commander you're trying to play, or go on the website, bunch of blue clubs, and go to the commander library. And that's awesome. Where do you think, like, how do you feel the current meta of cEDH is? How do you feel about it? The current
I really like it.
Or let's rephrase it, because everybody's meta is different. What is your current meta?
That's a good phrasing. My current meta is very, very all over the place. I think it's the right word. Because the way I do it is I usually live stream, and I have a philosophy. I'm gonna invite everyone, and I'm gonna give everyone a chance. And sometimes I'm skeptic about some decks people bring, but I love to see where this is, what this can do. I mean, even if they're playing something like Fringed, maybe there's something there that I haven't really thought of. But that really makes it so anything can happen. So my meta is very open, I would say.
I do agree. I did see 2 spicy decks that I did not see when I was on your stream, and they did very well. They were threatening wins on turn 1, turn 2, and that was pretty good. That was pretty good, consistent.
I think that is a good thing also, because then you don't get these inbred metas that are starting to play very specific cards because, he's playing this deck, so I'm going to include this very weird thing.
Because
to give you an example.
Go on.
Yeah. We had in our local game store once, we had a group who were discarding so heavily that I once included Waste Not. I didn't have any way of actually forcing people to discard cards, but I knew that this card was going to do frequently stuff because they were discarding things themselves. And that is
yeah, when you play niche cards because your play group is the same consistent play group and you build your deck to try to beat that person. Yeah. No, I think I like the Wild West of what you have going on your stream. Just
it's a good feel.
It's refreshing actually. Yeah. It was like you might see the same tech, like not even the same tech, like it's the same archetype, because he was still a fast breach deck, but he went somewhere completely different than what the other people were. And we were talking earlier about net decking. So there's a community out there who love net decking and despise net decking.
Yes.
When I just started off Magic with I was in my Skype group, and there were some people who would shame you if you were a net decker. That was the thing. It was like, you don't have any
creativity,
originality,
personality. Yeah. You just go look at someone else's hard work and play it. And then on the other hand, you have people who are like, but he put the work in, so why shouldn't I not use that deck and have fun with it? So how do you feel about it? How do you feel about those two contrasts?
I think that net decking is the best way to get inspired. It's a great way to look at something and then figuring out your own idea from it. I don't think you should copy blindly, because there are some problems when you copy blindly.
Right.
You can copy blindly. I actually do copy blindly sometimes when I want to play specifically against a specific deck and want to learn how that deck functions. I don't want to play my version of it. I want to play his version to understand his version and fight versus the better. So that is a good thing to net deck for. But also as a beginner, when you don't know exactly how you're going to build your specific commander, there's so much good inspirations from net decking.
Yeah, just looking at what people like. This is where cEDH rank comes in, where you are EDH rank, where you can see the card choices thousands of people chose for that commander,
Right.
and instead you want to just go off on this very niche plan.
And I've got something to put in on this when you're done.
Go ahead.
So my thought is, like, when I first got, so I'm old school, and old school was, we didn't have deck lists. We did, like, basically you would only get deck lists from like Scryfall, and they were 30 days outdated by the time you got them anyway.
Right.
So trying to follow a pre-made list was like essentially impossible when I started. And then when I got back into Magic, obviously same mentality. So I was not a net decker at first, and I got into Legacy. I brewed 3 different decks. All of those decks, I spent hours and hours and hours playtesting, going through all the dead ends, only to find out as soon as I took it to the shop with my secret new brew, that not only had somebody already brewed it, they brewed it better. And I wasted a bunch of hours, money buying cards that, you know, for every dead end, because I was, I wouldn't play with it until I bought it. And then somebody had already done it better. And then as soon as I would, all of those instances, as soon as I would switch to their list, the decks would play much better. And then I could still tweak them a little bit, and then they would further improve.
But your style,
yeah. So I kind of follow that same philosophy now with cEDH. Is I start out on a stock list, play enough games to learn it, and then I start tweaking it.
Yeah, so
that is a great experience input.
Yes, no, I like what you said, Mons, too, because I do that a lot with decks, where if I want to know how the deck works to try to beat that deck, I'll play the deck. So like now, I had a tangent a few weeks ago about Blue Farm, where
funny that you say that.
Exactly. So there was
a lot of people are actually in my local game store playing Blue Farm, and I intend to blindly copy River Maze Cry's exact list and just play it a bunch to just understand it better.
Oh, that's also, I was with this tangent of everybody is just greedy, and the best for greed is Blue Farm. And I wanted to know, how do I attack this deck? And I'm like, I don't know how the deck works. I know how the deck works, but I don't know where you interact with the deck. And that's what is in Blue Farm. How do you interact with it? So now playing the deck, I realize where the deck thrives and where people allow the deck to thrive. Like, you put a lot of, I know we're going off on a weird tangent, we're on limited time, but
we're good. We got like an hour.
I realized that this deck put a lot of resources in 2/6. The 2/6 are either early Crom or early Antos. And if they go early Crom, they're going for a grind game package. So if you kill this Crom, the whole game plan falls apart. But nobody does. Nobody kills the Crom. Crom stays on the battlefield, and people feed into the Crom.
Or they let it collect Timna draws.
Or they let it collect Timna draws, right. Or another thing where the pivot to is they're low on card resources, and Jessica's Will is their way to refill back into the game. And all people are like, you have a megaton of mana. You can have more mana, so let the Jessica's Will resolve. But that's not the same. The pure card quality of the deck is where the deck thrives. So I was like, okay, now I understand the deck. So I know how to interact with it. So I build Niv, which is his counterpart, where Niv plays so much bring interaction, even though it's weird, is still interaction that you can't play through. So if you're going to say, oh, I'm going to go on early Nas, and a lot of Niv decks right now are playing early Nivs.
Yeah.
So a lot of Niv decks are like, I want Niv on turn 3. And if you see a Niv on turn 3, normally you shouldn't add Nas into a Niv. But currently, the greed of people will add Nas into a Niv. And then
that's just suicide.
It's just suicide. And they're like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm at 3 life, I'm at 5 life, and I'm going to go win. And I'm like, that is fine. I will not interact with a spell you cast. And they're like, okay, go, go, go. And they're like, oh, every time I play Incident Sorcery, I take a damage. Yeah. So you're at 3 and I have a Brainstorm in hand. I would love to draw 3 cards and kill you. And they're like,
I want to add to the
And then they
greed
try
here.
to
Why
counter
didn't
spell
they?
it, and then you put them to 2 and draw 1 card anyway.
Yeah.
Are we
Talk
gonna
about backfire.
Yeah, no, it is beautiful. It's beautiful where so like so just the idea of just counteracting the meta. But a lot of people don't do that because
So
go ahead.
I was gonna say a good comparison for what Blue Farm is in cEDH compared to in other formats is like, you remember the old it's like Rug Delver or the check pile deck, which are like these 4-color good stuff where they don't really have any super bad matchups. They don't really have any they don't have any lopsided matchups. So the decks always can execute a plan relatively good. The overall card quality is very, very high, like on the list, card for card, in the in a vacuum, I guess you could say, or in the meta. Because of that, it allows you to really be able to move 1 or 2 pieces around to kind of shore up bad matchups or help improve your matchups in a meta. Whereas also at the same time, not like diluting your game plan because your overall card quality is so good. Right.
All right, so I have a question for you, Mons. How do you feel as a pillar of the community? What do you think as a veteran player? Like, we want more people to play our format, to grow our format.
Exactly.
What is some of the things that veteran players that you see in the community that we do to newer players that we should avoid doing?
You know when some we are all cEDH players, we play cEDH, and we should sometimes people are coming into the community, but they are not actually in for the cEDH games. Sometimes they are interested, and sometimes they want to take their more fringe Maraf deck, or maybe their fringe Vigilon Click, and they want to make it as good as they can. They want to make it the best deck in the world.
Right.
And what I think sometimes happen here is, which is a little bit sad, is that we cEDH players usually answer this by saying it's a bad commander, pick Tymna Thrasius or pick Tymna Crom instead, and you're going to have much better games.
Right.
But they aren't in yet for the cEDH. They're in to make this commander that they love as good as they can, and then maybe in the future they could be interested in cEDH. So I think you should have an idea of that introduction level, so to say.
Okay.
And I think what you're doing here, Tim, is something really good, because you are trying to build budget decks for people, an entryway, so to say. And then if they find that this is perfect, they can continue forward. But a lot of those budget decks are playing some fringe commanders to make it easier to such. And I think we as veteran cEDH players should acknowledge that everyone starts somewhere, so to say.
There's always a newcomer. And so one of the things that I do, like in that initial conversation with people, because a lot of times it's kind of like nudging them along the path, is differentiating between building a cEDH deck and optimizing a non-cEDH deck. And very poignantly making the distinction between the two. Because if you want to build, a lot of times what people say is I want to build a cEDH Vendalion Click deck. Which arguably is not something that is possible. So
I agree.
In that respect, I say, okay, are you trying to build a cEDH deck, or are you trying to optimize a non-cEDH deck? And then there's a little, but I want to make this. And it's like, well, and then you kind of explain some reasons. But then eventually they're like, okay, no, I just want to optimize what I have. And I'm like, okay, now we can work on doing things to make your list stronger and get the good interaction, get the good fast mana, get all of those things in there to help improve your percentages, but still maintain some of the self-imposed barriers that people are encouraged to impose in casual.
And I think cEDH players are the best people to ask this question. How can I make my Vidillion click the best I can? Because that's what we're trying to do, except we do it with better commanders. But
right. No, but that's at the heart, at the end of it, we all have our pet niche deck that we're trying to make better. Like, I would love. I'm not Lucas afraid. I know.
I love the face Timothy's making here.
I mean, I know. I haven't done it yet. I know it can be done. I know it's not a thing. Like, I know this, but deep inside of me, the casual player in me, I would love to just play my lands, make my 5/5s, play more lands with my Azusa, or play more lands with my Oracle, make more 5/5s, and sack them to copy my mind. Nothing makes me happy. But I know
nothing makes me happy.
Nothing makes me happy.
If you had
making 5/5s and sacking 5/5s, I'm here to sack 5/5s. If you could
assemble Horn of Greed and Fast Bond,
Fast Bond's illegal.
I know, that's what I'm saying. Assembling Horn of Greed and Fast Bond would push that. But that doesn't mean you can't make it like very, very high power.
You can make it as high power. I've played that deck to this pinnacle.
Right.
And I would just like to, if you just have a little more power.
So this actually brings up a really good kind of, I know it's a little bit of a tangent, but it's very applicable to this conversation. So take Omnath, for example. Like, you can like optimize the fuck out of Omnath. Like, you can make it, but at the same time, then you kind of have this thing where it turns into pub stomp. So that's where so that's where there's this like little gap between cEDH and like the upper limit of high power that isn't very well defined and isn't instantly recognizable. But there is a gap and you have to bridge it. And once you bridge it, you start getting into the like, well, why are you playing Omnath? Why aren't you playing Rurik Thar kind of stuff? If you're in, you know what I mean? Because Thar will play better into a cEDH meta. Well, I want to play lands.
I actually have a reply to that regarding the question, the main question from you, Sean.
Yeah.
I actually think that there's value for us veterans here in the beginner players bringing something weird and rogue and strange, like the Omnath deck. Because sometimes we discover things we didn't thought of.
True.
And sometimes we have this perception that this is how cEDH is, and outside of it is casual. But sometimes this little fringe casual might high power Omnath deck slips in, and it does something that might pique our interest, might make us learn more. I think I want to say to veterans, be more open-minded as well.
Yeah,
in that case.
Listen, I have.
I'm not saying that Omnath is good now. I'm not saying that.
No. Listen, on this note, I have, whoever knows me like for a while knows that I push one card very, very aggressively, and that's Jitte. I push Jitte in almost any Timna build, and people always like, why would you do that? Why would you play Jitte? That's a legacy card. It's terrible. Until they see what Jitte does, they're like, oh, it's a great card. And then that was it. They just leave it there. Oh, it's a great card, but I'll never play it. I'm like,
so I have played,
legacy card being good. Who could have thought?
Who could have thought?
Hey, I play Jitte in some decks.
I actually play Jitte in some decks too.
There we go. But I was like, why would you not put Jitte on a deck where you want to attack all the time, you want to draw cards, and you want to kill the blockers so you can draw more cards? Jitte seems free.
So that's so one, you have to pay 4 mana for that privilege, and you have to connect once and survive.
You don't have to
these-
connect, actually.
No.
But no, you have to
Yeah.
connect with something. You have to deal combat damage to a thing to
Yeah.
get the counters. And
Yeah,
A
so you
thing.
need to do, I mean, any creature. And then the
Yeah,
creature.
yeah.
So here's the problem with Timno. I have a Timno with a Jitte on board, and there's a collector Oof in play. All right. I have to swing my Timna in and die. And if he blocks, he'll kill it. Because I know that if I don't block, you're going to kill the Oof anyway because you're on stuff with artifacts, right? So now you have to, not only are you paying 4 mana for those 2 counters, you have to pay 5 mana to get your Timna back if you need to draw and equip it. But
Yeah.
in a very board centric meta, Jitte is really good. But in a non-board centric meta, it is not. It's too slow.
I
for what you get.
absolutely agree with you. What you're saying there, Timmy. Jitte is not a card for every deck, but it has a spot
dare.
in situations.
Don't you dare agree with him, sir. Bring the Jitte. Praise the Jitte.
Dude,
card.
I'm
Yeah.
saying it's a thing. It's just not always a thing.
It's not always good. True.
Yeah, I agree with
Alright.
that. I have a card here for you guys. Conqueror's Flail. I put that on Timna, making her a 6/6 with Thrasius.
Ooh, I didn't think about that. I just love it in Darcy for the silence effect.
Yeah, it's good.
Oh,
and
make
There's
it
that
a
too.
6/6. Make it a 6/6 as well. I didn't think about that one.
6/6 lifelink.
Lifelink. Ooh, that's like a mini series in there right there.
Actually, it's a big
Yeah.
Sarah said it.
A big
It's like-
series in it. Not a
It's-
mini. I apologize.
It's like if Grand Abolisher and Sarah Ascendant had a baby.
Oh, a
Mm.
very lovely child. It would be.
That is a
beautiful.
lovely child.
That's a lovely child. So while we going off on a weird off tangent there, where do you think CEDH is heading on? What do you think the future of CEDH is? Especially
You know,
with,
there's a scary future to that, and
Okay.
there's a circle of you could say a circle of life. So you have this turbo oddness, and there's the reply to that is usually rule of law stacks.
yes,
However, because rule of law stacks exist, only the mid-range greed value decks can sneak in and rule all of stacks because they can play through it.
yes,
So, but then you have the turbo decks realizing this doesn't work, so they are switching over to more greedy plays too. And then now the greedy decks are becoming too greedy, so that the stacks player has to reduce the amount of stacks. So the turbo decks becoming more stronger because the greedy decks can't really stop the turbo decks. Then that's the circle of life, how it circles around. And I think that could be an interesting but an annoying future. If you understand what I mean.
That was so spot on. It was scary.
I think
I
we could almost
believe-
make a whole video on that topic.
I think you could just make a whole video. I think that has been my CEDH life for what now?
Yeah.
3 years? 3 years?
2017.
That's literally, that is literally the cycle. It's cycle of super fast decks, someone try to meta against it, then someone try to meta against the deck that's meta against the best deck, and then like, oh, I can get under it. And then you're like, oh, then I need to be greedier. And then we're back to Nas. Yep, no, very
Yep.
true. Very true. Like, I have 3 deck builds right now, and that's literally what it says. I have a 9 Nas deck, I have a Hate Bears deck, and I have a control deck.
That's what I
And
did.
I
for
I
the
think we're
SCL.
somewhere.
Yeah.
I
that's
think
the
we're
cycle of
somewhere in the. I think we're somewhere in the part where the greedier decks are starting to greedy up a bit.
Yes, I believe we're there. Especially, well, we'll talk about that later.
I don't even think the
That's-
stacks have really kicked in yet.
Oh, they kicked him.
Yeah, true. Maybe. It's hard to pinpoint it, honestly.
You
Like-
don't think, I don't think they kicked him.
No, they're starting to show up. I just don't think they've. So what'll happen is they will get very widely adopted, like so much
Okay.
so
Yes.
that it'll start pushing out the turbo steps.
Okay, yeah.
That's when I'm not saying you're not going to have pods where it's like turbo, stacks, and then a mid range, and then one of the other two. What I'm saying is right now the emphasis is on turbo, and the stacks are kind of keep playing just the tip with kind of getting popular, but they're not quite there because turbo's such getting pushed public, like has so much publicity right now, and is in such a good spot that
Yeah.
People just want fast games, and they can get fast games with playing turbo.
Right.
That is a point. That's a good point, because people might still want to play turbo just because that's what they want to play, even if there's a billion stacks running around. They don't care.
Right.
Sure.
So I mean, a lot of games with like just a single stack and no mid range or nothing, like a stacks versus 3 turbo decks still pretty handily loses to somebody a lot of the time. Not always.
Yeah.
Not always. No, I've learned that on Mons stream. We got Valor Reach, Archons of Valor, and it was naughty.
I have another future prediction actually that is a little bit more advanced. There is a possibility of a more hybrid off-way forward, because if you look at some of the new cards, which are, in my opinion, power creeps from Wizard of the Coast, they are stacks cards, but value onto them that suddenly the Turbo Nos takes place. The best example here is Hullbreacher, and Op Agent in some cases too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Like Hullbreacher is a stack piece and also a win condition all in one card.
Exactly, a good hybrid example.
Yeah. No, I believe that's very correct.
Call that counter tech where I come from.
Counter tech.
Yeah.
All right. What do you... Go ahead.
There's another thing that I've been really thinking about regarding CEDH, but it's more about Wizards of the Coast and the future of proxies.
Would love to hear about that.
I mean, I've been thinking about this for a long time. I think we can agree that EDH is the biggest format in Magic right now.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, yes, without a doubt.
And CEDH is, and powering up the power level is always the future of all formats. And CEDH is growing. Eventually, Wizard of the Coast has to kind of address it, or not address it, but like do something about it. Because the way it's kind of going, which I like, by the way, is the proxy-friendly thing. Because you can't afford CEDH almost.
No.
So tournaments that are current...
Like, you can't even afford like good commander decks in a lot of instances because of the budget.
Yeah.
Like powerful ones when I say good. Let me rephrase that. Powerful commander decks necessarily.
That's it.
Yeah.
So we were having this conversation, I think, Tim and I. Well, Tim had another take on it. He was saying, go ahead, Tim. I think if you remember the conversation.
Well, I gotta know what the conversation is.
Okay, so the conversation, what Mons was talking about, the proxy friendly. So what we were talking about was, he believes that because of the pandemic, we are more adapting to the proxy. But when the pandemic is over, like now we have the vaccines and the shops start to open back up, we'll go back to I have no better word to say, but the stooges who dislike proxies, and they're like, oh, you gotta buy the real card and you only can play with the real card and blah blah blah. We're gonna go back to that state when the shops open back up. So I was like, no, right now there's a lot of people who are doing NPC proxies because their quality has been great. Like yes. Go ahead.
Here's the thing. If you look at the price of some of the new Magic cards that are coming out, and then you look at the price of proxies, and you look at the quality of proxies,
yes.
I mean, why can't I can just buy the proxy that is sometimes better, not always, but cheaper, and in CEDH communities, equally legal.
Yes.
I mean, it's almost the first time as Wizards has a competitor.
Right. No, I totally agree. Like,
here's the problem, though, is that competitor is based off of copyright infringement, for one. And when people physically go back into stores, there is going to be the whole, like, support your LGS, we need a place to play. Like, while is all in good, and personally, I have found that even with proxying, people will spend the amount of money on Magic regardless that they can spend on real physical cards because people just like owning them. But with this like social pressure of pushing the LGS, especially after it being closed for so long, and people kind of going back in masse, that social pressure will push people away from proxies, and then there will be a retrace on the public perception of it, I think. Back to pre-pandemic.
What I think should happen is Because I believe, here's the thing that I believe that hopefully a shop owner is listening somewhere. If you allow proxy events, right? If you allow proxy events, I'm still going to come into your shop. I'm going to buy sleeves. I'm going to buy drinks. I'm going to buy food. I'm going to buy cards. If I like the deck I proxy, eventually I'm going to want to foil it out. Or if you win a tournament, if you love the deck, you're going to now start buying the real cards.
Mm-hmm.
You will still get the same income. Stop being all hard-headed on it. Like, just let the people come into your shop. If you want to double the price on your events, make your events $10, $15. People are still going to come in and play it. Allow proxies. Legacy would come back. Vintage would come back. There will be more people playing these formats, and you still make the money.
So a lot of new vintage, legacy, old school scenes initially start out hosting proxy events. People show up, they have their proxies. The majority of those people begin to buy into that format.
Exactly.
Obviously, there's still that small segment that doesn't. But then kind of what happens is as more and more people buy in, those people who just refuse to like contribute anything to the collective start leaving a bad taste in people's mouths. And then there begins to get a social shift away from the proxy events because they don't like the fact that I'm putting all of this effort and all these resources into enriching our community, and these people are being parasitic and not. Like, that's the mindset. That's not necessarily what... because that percentage of people who's like, I won't proxy, I hate spending money in this game, blah, 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 you know, like all of that whole slope argument kind of can just begin to erode away that.
I think you're right, but I don't agree all the way. We've been proxy friendly at the local game store far before pandemic, so to say.
That's very good.
But like you're saying, Timothy, I do agree. There are people that are just busting packs in mass. Yeah, and still and after, because that's what they do. And Wizard will definitely make money, regardless, even if there are people that are making proxies. But I've talked to a local game store owner, and he was like, yeah, I can understand why people are making proxies, and I don't have a problem with that happening in my store, because he's selling candy, like you said anyways.
Yeah. Like, he's still making
But I'm not disagreeing with with your Timothy. I think that proxy, the real essence of actually owning real cards, people want to do that. There are those.
And I'm not saying every shop. In fact, I think the attitude will shift some. I just think there's going to be a big retrace, and probably more so than people are expecting. And I mean, most shops that I go, like when I host my meetups, pretty much I only host them at shops that are like, yeah, you guys are playing casual. We don't give a fuck if you guys play proxies. You guys come in and spend $600 anyway in like the first 20 minutes you're in the door between the group of you. Like, why wouldn't I want you there? But there is going to be this retrace.
Like right now. So right now, if we all know that there's no professional Magic going on. There's no sanctioned Wizard events happening. So if you want to just do a casual style F&M night with whatever format, get Legacy back into your community. If you don't have a Legacy scene, get Modern back into it. Allow proxies so everyone, you don't have a barrier. Not everyone can buy it. Someone want to play Tron. You can't. An Ulamog right now is $100.
What?
Like, you can't buy in to Magic like you used to right now. You can't. Allow the proxies, you still make the money, guys. Allow it. But anyways, we have said enough on
we've beaten this topic.
Another question for you. I mean, I guess it falls in right into what we're talking about. I'm gonna ask the last few questions here. That's the last question. I would like to end with this. On this note is, what do you think cEDH is? Do you think cEDH is a card pool or a mindset?
A mindset.
Okay.
I would say.
You wanna expand on why you think it's a mindset?
When you go into Commander games, you usually have an expectation of what you're looking for, a feeling, a search for what you want to experience. Right. If you ask a casual player, I want to sit there and watch my possibility storm flip into big explosive things, and that's a great feeling. That's a mindset feeling. If I'm going to a Commander game, I want to have a match where I'm trying to win against people that are also trying to win.
Right.
So we have the same card pool. We have the same possibility of power level. For example, you could play cEDH power level with a really wacky mindset.
Right. You can, and that happens a lot.
Yeah, it probably happens a lot.
I agree with
you. Have not lived until you have cast a Git probe and then possibility stormed into a Peer into the Abyss. Oh God, that's some.
It's beautiful. I would love to see that.
But
there are some really epic moments where even I sit there and go, it's gonna with this possibility storm, but the original competitive mindset is still there. Don't worry.
And then you brick on every other spell after that.
I despise possibility storm. I despise it with all right, so we were talking about the mindset, and we were talking about possibility storm, and we were saying the best feeling is to play Get Pro and
Torpedo. And then you brick on every other spell after that.
Every other spell.
Yeah.
You guys like that. I despise possibility storm. I like my spells to resolve, and I want it to resolve the way I say it should resolve. I don't want to spin the wheel of randomness and get. Listen, I play possibility storm in Frog. When someone had a possibility storm, and I did Frog, and I was like, I play a Ladder Elf, and I got a coast. Like, I was like, this feels delicious. At the same time, I wanted that dork. I wanted it. I needed that green mana, sir.
My big Eldrazi Titan doesn't tap for mana.
No, it doesn't. No,
it does if you have Earthcraft in the deck.
Okay, all right. We're going to now work Mons with Tim content Earthcraft into everything. Thank you for this great conversation. I'd like to end it with, what projects are you doing right now that you would like the world to know? Any project? Any deck building project?
Right now, I am trying to prepare as much as I can for the Danish tournament that I'm really, really excited about. And it's a big project of trying to get vaccinated and trying to just figure out what deck I want to bring. And I don't think I want to reveal what deck I'm gonna play there because I don't know yet myself. But that is my big project, personal project. Otherwise, it's the same deck techs and live streams and gameplay as usual.
Actually, Mons has been working on this deck tech project where he has been. And if anybody listens to this and they're interested, if you play a off meta deck and you are proficient at it and have experience, there potentially could be the opportunity for a deck tech with you.
Yes, I have started to set up a system of really making an efficient way to interview and get your opportunity to talk about your deck to the world. True.
There you go. And where can people find you, Mons?
People can find me on YouTube, cEDH TV. You can also find me on my Discord server. My name is MicroMonkey in red text. And if you ever want to write to me or ask me a question, or maybe if you want to come and play on my live stream, just write to that MicroMonkey on my Discord and we will talk about it and find a date and time.
I'll link your channel and your description in the show notes.
Thank you for coming here. Thank you for talking with us. We will subscribe, hit the subscribe button, guys, and the YouTube button, hit the bell. Donate if you wish to our Patreon, and we will have all the links below for Mons things and our things. Y'all have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye.
See ya.